This is part 2 of the iRig series. As I mentioned earlier, I did use the Liz character from the Anime Studio library, and I used her eyes as a guide, and I drew out most of the parts. I did borrow the original eyeballs, and here are her original eyes right here. And they are a bit different. She's got this kind of a heavier eyelash thing going on here for the upper and the lower. And I did take the parts of the original design of the eyes here. So let me hide that and I will put mine back on. So I didn't really like that heavy black eyeliner going on, and I did make mine much more subtle, and she doesn't have the extra kind of eyelash thing hanging off the edges there, which I could have done, but I just left this pretty simple. And of course, the huge difference between the eyes that I made and the eyes that come with the character is that the eyes that came with the character was just simple eyes in switch layers, and mine are using what's called the bone dials. Okay, much more fluid and subtle effects for making changes to the eyes. I've switched over now to a file that does not have any of the bone dials set up yet. And we need to look very carefully into the folder for the eyes in order to see all of what's going on, all of the elements here that are present. And this is set up in a folder right here, which has got the masking set up. I'll double click on the layer settings and I'll click on the masking tab, and the folder is set at hide all, and I'll click OK. So within that folder I've got the lids. The lids are on top of everything, and the way that I have this set up, the lids actually do not have any masking applied. It says don't mask this layer. And don't worry, we'll look at all of this again. Next, in a subfolder, I have the iris and the pupils, because I wanted the pupils to be set up separately to be able to dilate, and then the irises, the green part, and the pupils together to be able to move left and right and up and down. Next, I've got the eye whites below that. The eyebrows are separate in a folder. At times they actually move with the lids, and they also have their own bone dial so that the eyebrows can do different configurations separately when they need to. And then there's the mask, and the mask is what I'll get more into detail as we move along. Before I move on to part 3 of the series, I wanted to show you each piece individually. And so I hid all of them, and now I'm going to turn on the lids, and here are the lids. Alright, there's that kind of a eyeliner outline, and this is an overlap into kind of like the face, the skin color there, and the lids are what move down to close the eyes. And then I've got the iris and the pupils, which, as I mentioned, are each their own layer. All right, so there's the iris, the colored part of the eye, and then the pupils, and the pupils just have the little highlights in there with them as well. Now let me hide. There we go. And then I've got the eye whites there. Alright, and that's just the eye white part there that's behind the iris and the pupils. Of course, the eyebrows are just separate on their own layer. And the mask, which looks very similar to the eye whites, and it matches very closely to the eye whites as well, but it has its own boundaries, and this is the most important part in terms of making it so that when you saw the eyes going right and left and up and down, they were appearing to hide or disappear into behind the eyelids. Alright, so now we'll move on to part 3.